dogs living in shelters, this dog was sad and was stuck in a shelter for 2 years. Then it recognized the scent of someone familiar, and you'll never believe what happened next. Paquita was a beautiful large brown dog. She seemed to have a lot of chocolate lab in her blood, but she had a problem. She liked to explore her surroundings, which meant that despite all the precautions her owner took, she got out time and again. This was never too much of an issue. She would go out while he was at work, and then she would be back by the time he came home. He tried to keep her inside, but generally when the neighbors saw her outside, they knew that she was a friendly dog that loved everyone and just wanted to play. Kids would throw a ball for her, and others would set out water and food so she was cared for. Even if her owner, Ariel Navira, tried keeping her inside the yard on a yard leash. But as most Labrador owners know, they are seriously smart, and Paquita kept outsmarting Ariel and got out eventually. Until one day, Paquita was wandering around the neighborhood when she saw a squirrel and ran after it. She ran much farther than she had realized, and when she turned back, the area seemed unfamiliar. She kept walking in a direction, not knowing that she was getting even farther away from home. The poor dog was tired and scared. She tried to go in a few backyards, knowing that her neighbors always had water waiting for her, but this time the residents of the homes would just chase her off. She tried to run to kids that were playing outside, but they ran away screaming, scared of the large dog coming towards them. It must have hurt the poor canine's feelings. She was used to people caring about her, but these people didn't know her. Many of the residents felt like the dog was making a nuisance of herself. One of them decided that it would be better to get the brown dog taken away. They were worried since some kids were throwing rocks at Paquita. It was becoming dangerous for the dog to stay in the neighborhood. They called her and Paquita came to them easily. Then these people took her to Arca Animal Shelter. This is a great shelter that really cares about the animals that are brought to them. Sylvia Ferreira, one of the volunteers at the shelter, was touched by the dog right away. Paquita had sad eyes, and by the time she got to the shelter, she had lost her trust in humans. The once happy dog didn't want to bond with anyone at the shelter. Sylvia would try to pet her and she would just pull away and keep her distance. Paquita was very shy and she didn't want another family. She knew that her person was somewhere out there, missing her. She just needed to make her way home, not to find a new family. But despite how withdrawn Paquita was, the shelter personnel tried their best to help the dog open up. They really wanted her to get adopted. They often tried to pair Paquita with families that came to look for a dog at the shelter. But every time Paquita refused to play with them or get close, she would just stay behind the shelter volunteer that was introducing them, like a scared child trying to hide behind their mother. But that would be the only time she showed trust in her caretakers either. Other times, she avoided them too. Time after time, the families went with younger puppies or dogs that were just friendlier than Paquita. For 2 years, they tried to get the dog to socialize, but she wasn't having any of it. Each time Sylvia or any of the volunteers tried to pet her, Paquita would pull away and cower in the corner, trying to make herself as small as possible. This wasn't a dog that liked to socialize. She just wanted to be left alone. Instead of coming out of her shell as time went on, Paquita became even more depressed. When 2 years had passed, Sylvia and her colleagues knew that they needed to try something different. They wanted to post Paquita on social media and get people to come in, especially to adopt the sad girl. They could warn people that she wasn't social and hope someone would be willing to take her on. But they struggled to even get a picture of her to post. Every time that they tried to take a photo, she would turn her head away and avoid eye contact. You could see how sad she was, but they hoped to get another picture. One nice picture of her beautiful face to get someone to fall in love with her. It took a while, but after many attempts, they managed to get one picture that was relatively decent. They posted it on their social media page, hoping it would inspire someone to come forward and adopt Paquita. They hoped that she would become less depressed if she lived in a house instead of at the shelter. This was Paquita's last chance of finding a home, or she might end up spending the rest of her days in the shelter. They would care for her regardless, but it would still be really sad. Then something incredible happened. Ariel Navira's mother saw the post and she knew that this was Ariel's baby. He had been looking for Paquita for 2 years and didn't have the heart to get a new dog. It would feel like he was giving up on Paquita, and he just couldn't do that. He had often gone out searching for his lost dog, but never had any luck. His mother knew how sad he was and searched through social media pages from different shelters in their city, hoping she would see Paquita on one of them someday. She hoped for the best, but didn't really expect it to ever happen. Now she was sure the dog she was looking at was their very own Paquita. The dog seemed a lot sadder than when she lived with them, but it was her. She phoned the shelter first. Her biggest fear was that she would phone and they would tell her Paquita had already been adopted. But she was in luck. The shelter personnel were really excited to hear from her. Paquita was still with them. Sylvia and all the other volunteers really hoped that this was going to be the happy ending Paquita deserved. But they had no guarantees. There was still a chance that Ariel and his mother could get to the shelter and find that this wasn't their dog at all. Or Paquita could have so many emotional scars from her years in the shelter that she didn't recognize them. It was a scary situation with an unpredictable outcome. As soon as Ariel heard that his mother thought she had found Paquita, he wanted to get to her. The very next day the two went to the shelter. The personnel brought Paquita out to see them, but things didn't go as they had hoped. Someone was filming the encounter, hoping that Paquita would instantly be excited and happy to see her humans. But that didn't happen at all. It's important to remember that this was a sad dog that was depressed and hurt. She might not have believed her own eyes. It looked like all their fears were coming true. Paquita didn't want to come close to Ariel. She hid behind the shelter volunteer that had brought her outside, just as she did with countless other families that tried to adopt her. Ariel was sure that this was his pup, but she didn't seem to recognize him at all. Ariel wasn't willing to give up just yet. He had just found his dog after 2 long years when he feared the worst. Even if she didn't recognize him, he would take the time to remind her that she was loved. He sat down in front of the scared dog and called her name. Slowly she approached him. She sniffed him. And then suddenly, her entire body language changed. She recognized his scent. The sad dog disappeared within seconds and started jumping up and down and licked Ariel in greeting. It was a really special reunion. All those around them had tears in their eyes from seeing the love. Their bond was still there, and that bond would remain. Ariel gave an update more than a year after their reunion with Paquita. She never tried to get out again, and the two of them were closer than ever. They were inseparable, and both would make sure that they never would be separated again. Thanks for watching. Join us again for even more incredible stories that will inspire.